1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All week we've been talking about this tension flat 7, taking a major triad and applying the flat 7 to it, but not as an arpeggio, not just 1, 3, 5 flat 7, but learning to think of it, practice it, hear it, and use it as a series of resolution points and a tension note so that we can create some emotion, some drama, some momentum in our lines. Yesterday we discussed how we could apply that over a diminished chord, right? So that we're kind of playing, you could almost think of it as like a dominant arpeggio, except we're focusing on phrasing, to use that to improvise over a diminished chord, even when that diminished chord does not resolve in a way that makes any sense to the dominant. So specifically, we were doing the B diminished, playing over it with like a G dominant type of a structure. So G major triad with the flat 7 being treated as a melodic tension note. And then resolving that B diminished down a half step to B flat minor. Right? Okay, so generally we think B diminished would likely resolve up to C, C major or C minor. So then using a G7 arpeggio makes sense in terms of diminished dominant, because G7 and B diminished both take us to C, so it works. When we resolve down to B flat minor, now we're essentially voice leading a G7 to a B flat minor, which is kind of a quirkier, less expected movement, but very prevalent in jazz standards. So what I did last night was I just wrote this simple little etude. Okay, you can find it in the PDF. I'm going to play through it right now. And it's just applying a few different chord ideas over a basic 12-bar jazz blues, specifically laying into this diminished movement. Okay, so we're going to be using this flat third diminished. If you're looking at the PDF right now, you'll see that it is in the key of A flat, but I don't play the A flat chord at the beginning. In fact, I almost completely avoid the A flat. There's very few moments where I play an A flat chord here. Every time it's supposed to go to A flat, I'm pretty much subbing in the minor 3 for it instead. So it starts on C minor. Let me just play through it once, and then I'll take a few minutes to break it down and show you what's happening. One, two, 1, 2, 3. Hair off in there for a split second. I was about 1 fret off. I don't know where my brain went. God bless sight reading on live video. Okay, so that's just a blues, but a lot more movement than you would expect to see if you opened up the real book. This has more movement. There was, I believe, almost in every measure there was 2 chords happening. Okay, starts on C minor in measure 1, C minor, B diminished, B flat minor, D diminished. I'm going to go through and explain where all these chords come from. C minor, B diminished, B flat minor, D diminished, E flat minor. Here's an A flat 7, but it's already bar 4, and I'm only going to hit it once, and then I'm immediately off of it to C diminished. D flat 7, D diminished. This is pretty straightforward, these 2 measures. That's what you would expect to see if you looked at a row book. 4 chord, sharp 4 diminished. A flat 7 over E flat, B diminished, C minor, B diminished, B flat minor, B diminished, C minor, B diminished, B flat minor, E flat. And then I resolved on a nice big old fat A flat 6, so we can finally get that resolution in what would be the measure 1 of the second time through the form. So what's happening here is I'm using our concepts from Chords for Life. Okay, those of you who are in the study group or who've worked through that course, it's all about seeking movement, right? It's not necessarily about how do we find the fanciest voicings. It's just how do we look ahead to where we want to go? How do we target a chord in front of us in the form? And how can we create movement to get there? So I'm kind of combining a couple of different forms of movement in this pattern, the first couple measures. It's a little bit diatonic, but I'm throwing in the diminished in here. The same one we talked about yesterday. Right, here's C minor, this is the 3, and I'm kind of walking down diatonically to the 2, as though I was going to play 2, 5, 1. The 3 can walk down just stepwise to the 2, which sets me up for a 2, 5, 1. Right, but I don't go straight to the 2, I walk down with the diminished chord. Brent, what's happening, man? Daniel, good to see you guys. Hope things are good out west. Sean, hey, what's up, man? All right, 3, flat 3 diminished. If we were to improvise over this, one of my go-to options would be a G major triad, tension flat 7, a G7 chord. But again, it's going to resolve to B flat minor. So you have to change your way of thinking. Diminished chords are not always inversions of 7 flat 9s. You can play over it as though it were a G7 flat 9, but you have to understand that it's going to resolve in a weird way. So if you can only think of diminished as an inversion of 7 flat 9, it might make this seem confusing. You have to be able to and willing to see diminished as also able to resolve down a half step. And then the whole game changes. Okay. Now instead of going directly to the 2-5 as I said I was going to, 2, 5, 1. Instead of going there, I start to set up the fact that we're about to modulate to the 4 chord. Right? Again, this is straight out of Chords for Life. I'm moving towards the 1. Okay? I'm targeting the 1 chord. I'm starting away from where I should be starting and targeting the movement towards it. A flat. But by the time I'm about to get there, I realize, uh-oh, I gotta be over there now. Right? It's like you're headed to go visit your girlfriend, and all of a sudden you realize you're late for work, and so you text her and you're like, I can't make it, and you change direction and you start heading for work. So instead of targeting the A flat, by the time I'm about to get there, I realize I have to target the 4 chord. So C minor, B diminished, B flat minor. Now I gotta get to D flat. Okay? So one way to get to D flat is to 2-5 our way to it, which is part of dominant movement. So the dominant we could use for that, there's a variety of ways harmonically to move through this using just dominant movement to get there, but the way that I went with was the 2-5, E flat minor, A flat 7 to D flat, right? But I didn't jump straight to that chord, I targeted the E flat minor with D diminished. Right, what measure is that in? That's in measure 2. Second chord, measure 2. B flat minor, D diminished, E flat minor. So I'm using a dominant style diminished now. You could almost think of that D diminished as like a B flat 7, flat 9. Now it is resolving in that 5-1 type way. So the first diminished, in measure 1, the B diminished is resolving down a half step. And then the next diminished I use D is resolving up a whole step. Now I'm in my 2-5. And here I jump straight from the A flat 7 to C diminished. Right, that's measure 4. That's a perfect example of a diminished dominant, a relationship where they're effectively functioning the same way. A flat 7 is the 5 that wants to take us to D flat, and C diminished is the diminished that wants to resolve up a half step to D flat. And they're basically inversions of each other. So I just take advantage of that by using both. Okay, now we're into a relatively standard chunk of the blues form. 4, sharp 4 diminished, D flat 7, D flat diminished. Back to the 1, but I use it as an inversion. I play it as an inversion, so it's got the E flat down here so that I can get D flat, D, E flat. Okay, E flat, I drop straight down to B diminished because I know B diminished is related to G7 flat 9, and I know both chords want to pull up to C minor, which I'm going to use to target measure 9 in a second for the 2-5-1. So B diminished takes me to C minor, which I can then walk back down through B diminished to B flat minor. Okay, this B diminished can move really cleanly, really smoothly in either direction, up or down. And we see this in a ton of jazz standards, this flat 3 diminished. It's an important diminished chord to know in a key signature. Anytime you're playing around within a tune that's in a major key, it's worth being aware of where your flat 3 diminished is. It shows up in tons of tunes. Okay, Stella by Starlight, Rhythm Changes, Alone Together. What was some of the ones we talked about yesterday? They'll pop back into my head, I'm sure, while I'm discussing the rest of this etude. All the Things You Are, right? That's near the end. Shows up all over the place. Flat 3 diminished is huge. Someday My Prince Will Come. That's the one that I was trying to look for. So we have D flat 7, D diminished, A flat over E flat, B diminished, which wants to pull up to C minor, which I can then walk back down through B diminished again to the 2 chord, and then I went back up. Now I'm in bar 9. This is 2-5-1 turnaround. But instead of playing 2-5-1, I did 2 flat 3 or sharp 2 diminished back to C minor. Okay, so that entire 12-bar blues, which is just the key of A flat, it's an A flat blues. I only play A flat 1, 2, 3 times. One of those times is an inversion of it, so it's not a full-blown A flat, but it's an A flat. And the third time I do it, we're already into the next form. So in the actual 12 measure form, I only play A flat twice, and each time you're only hearing it for 2 beats, and one of those is an inversion. Okay? A lot more movement than you're going to see if you open the row book. Let me play through it one more time. Try not to hit that wrong chord at the end. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's the blues. I'm going to loop it real quick and just play over it so you can hear kind of the bluesy nature of the lines I'm able to play over this. We're not going to discuss any like strategies for playing over it. I'm just going to play over it as though I were playing an A-flat blues. Okay, I'm not going to try and outline any of these specific chords necessarily. I might, we'll see what happens, but let's try this. Okay, it's a weird feeling to hear that form start on the 3 versus the 1. Right, you keep expecting this big, like, coming home moment, and then you just never get it. Okay, so be cognizant of that and careful of that if you're going to comp with these types of ideas, that there's only so many choruses in a row where you can kind of get away with it. C minor 7 and A flat are very related to each other. Okay, so it's okay to do this, but you might want to be careful of not overdoing it. It is a good tool, a good trick to have up your sleeve so that you're not constantly hitting A flat over and over and over and over and over and over and over for 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. That can get really boring, but also playing C minor instead over and over and over and over and over can get really boring. So it's a good trick to have up your sleeve to be able to mix things up and change textures and change colors and make people think a big resolution moment's coming up and then not hit it, not give it to them. So play around with that, think about that. Think about different ways you could use this diminished sound. Okay. And Sean, what's up, man? Good to see you. I think we'll leave it there today. There's not really too much more I want to say about that in just like a generic group setting like this. Play around with diminish, think about the different directions it can resolve, mess around with the blues. If you want to memorize this etude, that's cool. Apply some rhythm to it, but take the concepts I'm trying to get at of creating movement, of looking ahead to where we want to head and inserting diminished chords that can move you through different harmonic pathways to get to different points in the form. And sometimes you will reach them, and other times while you're on the way there, like in the first couple measures, while you're on the way there, you're going to realize, oh, there's another important moment coming. I need to turn directions and head that way instead. Okay? It can lead to some really interesting chord progressions. I don't really think of these as substitutions as much as alternative pathways, alternative harmonic pathways through the form. So we can kind of mix and match things and move through the form, imply the form, without getting stuck on the exact same chords, chorus after chorus after chorus after chorus. If it doesn't swing and if it doesn't groove, no amount of interesting chord movement is going to fix that problem. So when it comes to comping, make sure you're working on your time, metronome, drum genius. Try not to play along with robotic sounding rhythm sections if you're working on comping. I will be band in a box unless you have like the real instrument download thing. It can kind of train you to swing like a computer would swing, like a robot would swing, which most soloists are not going to enjoy playing over. And most rhythm sections are not going to enjoy having that kind of comping in them. So keep it human, listen to great music, steal rhythms from them, play along with drum genius, play along with drummers if you're able to, and just mess around with diminished movement. Hit me with questions if you got them. If you're not in the study group and you like these ideas, but cramming it into a 20 or 30 minute lesson is just too much for you and you want more of a practical step-by-step process, it's worth checking out the Chords for Life course. We go into different types of chord movement, and each one has its own full-blown lesson of little baby steps, how we can move through it and apply it to changes with tons of etudes. So check out that course, check out the study group if you want. We have open office hours this weekend for the study group members, so if you guys have questions, come hang, let me know. And until tomorrow, for our advanced melodic triad concepts, I'll see you guys there. Until then, happy practicing. Hey YouTube, it's Jordan Clemens with NYC Jazz Guitar Masterclasses and the Melodic Triad Study Group. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a ton of content coming out on YouTube this year. We've been doing daily jazz guitar lessons, so I'm going to be posting videos like this pretty much every day. So if you dug this and you want to follow me, subscribe and make sure that you turn on notifications so that you can watch more videos like this. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the comment section. Hope to see you in the next video.